Hello, everyone. Welcome to Meticulous Talks on March 14th. I am, as always, cursechords.
And I'm Hithroc.
Are you having a happy pie day, Hithroc?
Yeah, I didn't have a pie today though. I should fix that.
We all should fix that.
It's
I
true.
have some pumpkin pie mix, some pie crust, so I guess I'll get to that after the stream. Anyway, card-related news. We had some big card-related news last week with the rules update. Now, sideboarding is a thing.
Yeah, it's a big change in how decks are built.
Yeah. Something that people have been asking for quite a while, I think. I don't know what extent anyone's officially said this should be a thing that happens. I think it's more been, it would be nice if we had sideboards. But anyway, I think a lot of people were pretty excited to see it into the game. Me too.
Yeah, I think the main reason why people weren't actively proposing it is because we're the best of one game primarily, and sideboards aren't as impactful in best of one games
Yeah,
as with best of three.
that's true. Yeah. Generally, the way that they work in other games is, you have the best of three format. You get to play your first game, and then based on how that went, you get to switch your deck up a little bit, put in answers to whatever your opponent is doing, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, for us, well, the way that we are going to have it work is you get to see your opponent's main, you get to see your opponent's starting problem, and then you get to make your decisions then. So you get a
Yeah.
little bit of information. You can
Yeah,
make a
not
guess.
as much as playing a full game, but still some information, usually enough.
Yeah.
Although you sometimes get situations where your opponent is student 6 playing backball strategy, and it's like, okay, that can be anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it struck me that there's now a little bit of extra value in sort of masquerading your deck as
Yeah.
something else. Play the same starting position and play a deck that counters the answers people would put in to deal with the deck that you're trying to impersonate. It's
Yeah.
like a double bluff on.
Remember the Rarity Ambassador Bugle trick from last year?
Yeah.
It works even better now.
All right. So to elaborate, in case anyone
What did you want to elaborate on first?
Oh, I see what the problem is. Okay. Well, yeah. The exact rules of what the sideboard implies. Can you talk about that while I fix this?
Yep. Actually, I'll just bring up the update document on my screen and go through it, because I don't remember the exact details. Okay, so 2 documents were changed. Actually, 3 documents were changed. One is comprehensive rules, which added a couple of things about how sideboard should work. And in the game, we now have an extra sideboard zone, so to say, where your sideboard cards are in. Important thing is you can't look at your sideboard during the game. So if you forgot what you put in there and you really want to know, you can't do it. You have to remember. And when I at first saw that, I thought yeah, that's not really that relevant. But then I actually played some games. Knowing what you removed into your sideboard from your deck can be really important, because sometimes it's really important to keep track how many things you have left in your deck. So that's one thing. So sideboard is an extra zone. After players have selected their main and starting problem, both players can put any amount of cards from their sideboard into their deck, and remove any amount of cards from their deck into their sideboard or exchange them. You have to keep in mind though that the maximum sideboard size is 5, and the minimum minimum deck size is 45. So by the end of swapping and exchanging cards, you have to have a legal deck, and your sideboard should not be more than 5 cards. So yeah, and that's pretty much the spirit of the change. You have cards you can swap before the game starts, after you see opponent's main and starting problem. So like the change itself mechanically isn't really complex, but there's a lot of things that can be done with this.
Absolutely. It's going to require. Well, it's another element of. It's another element of the metagame, and it's another element of play as well.
Yeah.
There's a whole different element of what kind of things you want to put in your sideboard, what kind of decks you expect to be at the events that you're going to, and then also the decision you make in the moment of which cards to put in and take out based on that limited information at the start of the game.
Yeah. So another thing that I forgot to mention, you can't you can have problems in your sideboard. Sideboard only works for draw deck. It makes sense because you select the starting problem first anyway.
Right. Not going to be able to change that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also introduced other issues that if you're allowed to swap problems, it's really easy to mix them up. So it's just easier to have it for draw deck.
That makes sense, yeah. All right. So, what impacts do we expect this to have? I think in Harmony, there's a relatively obvious example of how, well, Harmony has, we talked about this about a month ago, how Night Red Moon's kind of everywhere in Harmony these days.
Yeah.
And Picky Sense was like just the card you put in to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's not, seems like probably a great sideboard card these days, unless it's actually a part of your deck. Possibly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'll probably run a lot of them, and it's just if you don't expect to see Nightmare Moon against you, you just remove some of them, but you probably keep some in there still. Mm-hmm. Because it's still a good card by itself. And it's 0 cost. You can put Fire's Friendships into play for free. Other cool tricks. Yeah, and that's the thing about sideboards. You can just add extra copies of stuff in it. It doesn't have to be like a single card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with only 5 cards to work with. You're not really able to pop out whole free card multiples particularly effectively. So pretty much no matter what, your deck is gonna play pretty much the same way no matter what you do. You're just gonna be able to fine tune the feel of it, I guess.
Yeah. One thing that should not delude people is that while the sideboard size is 5, it doesn't mean that you can only include like 5 cards as specific answers to specific decks. Because in reality, having a 5-card sideboard means that before the match, you just remove 5 cards from your deck that you need the least.
Absolutely, yes.
Which means you can have like 5 cards in your sideboard countering like 2 archetypes, right? And you have some cards in your main deck to counter like some 3rd archetype. And if you're not matched against that 3rd archetype, you just remove those cards and put new ones in. So it's, even though it's only 5 cards and it sounds like a very small amount, it's still way more flexible.
Yeah.
Than not having anything at all.
Yeah, it's kind of a mental adjustment to make, to think of it not as a 45 card deck with a 5 optional cards, but rather as a 50 card deck where you can just remove the 5 cards that you don't need.
Yeah. Which can be different cards depending on the matchup.
Exactly.
Have you built any decks with sideboards yet?
Just the one last Friday for the new adventure deck this week. Which was the theory basically was that it was a 3-color deck, pink, blue, yellow, and then you use the sideboard basically to swap between your 2 secondary colors, yellow and blue.
Oh, like a transformer deck.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
It's you don't get to transform it too much. It's only 5 cards worth, but still. Basically, you could either be playing a really fast aggro deck, or you could be playing a yellow deck with a little bit more answers, if you thought you were going to be playing against control.
Yeah. I personally have a really hard time building cards with sideboards, decks with sideboards, because I know sideboard is like a thing in MTG, but I didn't play MTG much, and this is the primary card game I played. So most of my deck building experience comes without sideboarding in mind at all. So now we have this, and it's like, oh wait, I can also put 5 more cards in here. What do I put? How do I counter specific cards? What will I remove? Especially if it's some existing deck that already been in place, and I want to add the sideboard to it. It's really hard. But if I'm building a deck from zero, it'll probably be easier.
I don't know. It's as I said before, there's a bunch of different ways to approach it. You can either build your 45 cards and then think about maybe 5 optional cards that go in there, or like I did, start with a basic idea of what you're going to use your sideboard for, or else build a 50 card deck and then just think about what comes out. That's probably one of the most fun elements of it. Is it adds this whole other layer to your deck building process.
Yeah. It also helps with the general idea of sideboard is that you can include more silver bullets. And it's interesting how this will impact this game, because most of the sets were not designed with sideboard in mind. So in some sets, there are some silver bullet cards that deemed weak, right? Which might get strong now just because we have sideboards and they're really good against specific answers, and you don't have to run a dead card if you don't have to.
Yeah. Like, say, what's the card? Destiny Drain. Always include 2 copies of it in your Harmony deck. You never know. That seems like a classic. Just put it in your sideboard now.
Yeah, or cardboard box.
Yeah, exactly.
Usually it's not a very useful card unless you're playing against farm. So, before, you sometimes had to not include some specific answers to specific archetypes because you ran out of deck space and can't afford to run dead cards, but now that's not an issue anymore.
Yep. I think it was Bugle who actually said in Discord that you can potentially consider a deck as some 35 to 40 card core, and then the rest is your flex answers. Which that's probably a reasonable way to approach it as well.
Yeah, but it is how it was before, though. It's just you didn't have an option to remove them from your deck.
Yeah, I guess.
You still ran answers to some archetype. You still had the core of the deck, that the cards that you need for your deck to function, and the rest of the cards are just answers to some archetypes or generic situations. School Shutdown. Not every deck requires School Shutdown to work, but people still put School Shutdown in as an answer to like when things go wrong, or against specific decks, like a critter spam or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it just works out to more options.
Yeah.
Or, for everyone essentially. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what effect this has on the meta. The first, well, knock on wood, the first tournament to feature it would have been BabsCon. As we all know, that situation is in a state of flux at the moment.
Yeah, it's in the air.
But
we'll see.
We both had been planning on attending, so if in the event that it goes ahead, and there has been no word yet that it won't go ahead, so default state of affairs is that it will still.
Yeah,
will be there, and it will be the first tournament with sideboards.
Yeah, even if it won't, I'll still be like in the general area of it because flights and stuff.
I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just there won't be a tournament, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. We can still go to like a local meetup or something.
Yeah.
All that's still booked in, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, like my ideology here is the goal is to have an amazing weekend, not to like visit a con. And how I get to that amazing weekend can be different.
Pretty solid piece of advice there, I think.
But anyway,
yeah.
Back on the topic of sideboards.
Well, yeah, I feel like we've covered a good amount of them. Has anybody else made any like preview decks and stuff? Did Bugle maybe publish something at some point, or not?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I know GP posted recently in Slack like a deck which spawned into existence like this Thursday, I think.
Okay.
It's a pretty hilarious deck, and it has sideboard in it because it was built after the sideboards were announced. But other than that, I didn't see many decks floating around.
Right.
I will choose to keep my deck secret until Babs.
Good policy. And I guess it to some extent it's almost a little hard to tell, given that Ponyhead still doesn't have an official sideboard thing. If you see a 50, if you see a 50 card deck, that's a good clue. But it could just be a 50 card deck.
Yeah. You know, the sideboards should have been 8 size, so we have 53 card decks.
The interesting thing, I guess, is that now that the rules change of like the new phase and the new zone and all, well, it's not a new phase, but like the new pregame step, that's the hard part. Now, if they wanted to say, okay, now we have 8 card sideboards or 10 card sideboards or whatever.
Yeah, it's just a number change.
Yeah. So in theory, that could happen.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of happened because in Limited, the sideboard is unlimited.
Yeah.
So it is kind of like it works in Magic. And it has an interesting side effect that you can rebuild your entire deck after seeing opponent's main. Because you would have your entire draft pool in your sideboard.
Mm-hmm.
But in a real setting, you won't have time for that. So probably don't attempt that.
Good point, yeah.
Yeah, you only have about like 2 minutes to decide what to put in and what to put out. And from my experience of playing with sideboard so far, 2 minutes is not enough for me. It's really hard.
Huh. Maybe that'll improve a little with experience.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that about covers sideboard discussion. Yeah. Like I said before, it's well, next time we have Pages on, we'll have to probably talk with him a bit about it, given that he's the one of us who actually has played a fair amount of Magic and
Yeah.
understands the way that sideboards are supposed to work, or well, the way they can work. So the next element we'll be talking about decks from Store Champs. Apologies for the strange resolution on the stream. That one was. This was the settings we were using for the friendly match last week, or well, 4 weeks ago now, I
I
guess.
see what happened. Yeah.
And yeah, I forgot to change the settings. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I won't be able to do that without
Without
taking the stream
restarting the
off.
stream.
So like it's okay now. It's gonna look real weird if we start throwing decks up there. Oh,
Might look okay.
well, I mean, I guess we'll find out. So I had a list here. I took a list look through this morning. Okay, we can start with the lowest hanging fruit. Where did I put them? Which would be your farming list,
Yeah.
Moscow. That way, if the deck looks awful, only you are getting embarrassed. Well, you and me.
It does look awful. I built it. I know.
Let's see, faithful student. Yeah, okay.
There were two lists actually. This one is mine. It's fine. You can see the art. You can't read the name of the cards.
Right.
But you can see the art.
Yeah, everyone knows. Well, there are some relatively old cards in here that people might not be familiar with, but you can explain.
Yeah. So I usually play blue-purple control everywhere because I really enjoy that deck. But this time around, I decided to go off that route. As you see, I didn't go very far. It's still purple. But the idea is that we had 5 players at our store champs, and we had 1 aggro player, 1 control player, 1 mid-range player, and 1 combo player. And I thought, like, we're missing 1 archetype. I guess I'll play that. And since I still wanted to play purple, I decided to play just Faithful Student mono purple farm. And besides, it's like my favorite pure farming deck because I like the idea that you play events and you flip events, which fuels you with more events. It's really good. I like the idea. It's much more fun than like your regular orange pay 2 to move your main farm a troublemaker. You're done.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So from the leaders and legends, I included dramatic entrance because it doesn't require you to have any wreck, which is really good with this main because flipping this main is the hardest part of this deck probably.
Yeah, that was definitely the thing that I looked at first. It's like, wait a second, how are you going to flip your main over? And you've got dramatic entrance, you've got the extra flip cards, you've got bug
And
ball.
I get bug ball strategy, yes.
Yeah.
Which is why I start with bug ball all the time instead of social obligations, is because of that 1 extra power. It can matter a lot. Like, as good as social obligations is, I think bug ball for this deck as a starting problem, it makes it more consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to draw a staff every game, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, go on.
So yeah, dramatic entrance and extra flippings are pretty good. And what's really good about this main is that when you flip it, you can put all of the events you flipped into your hand immediately. You don't get an extra AT, but you do get your events. And it's pretty good. One of the actually latest inclusions of this deck, which I didn't have originally, is the Crown of Sibling Supreme. I wasn't convinced on this card before. I was like, yeah, it's expensive. But then there were games where it really saved me. Like, there were moments that, like, oh, if I draw into Crown Sibling Supreme right now, I just win right off the bat. So this card is pretty good for scoring like extra points because, as you can see, there's not a single problem. Well, I guess barring bug ball strategy that I can confront in this deck.
Yeah.
Actually, might as well confront Entrance Exam, but not others. too high Rex.
Yeah.
Or colorful Rex. Yeah, so other than that, it's a pretty standard mono purple list. You have all your good old control events like Napcakes, Magicides, Luna's Futures to slow opponent down. You have Star Soul Research, which is pretty good with this main because you put it on top of your deck, you flip it, and you get it back. So there's pretty much no point in not playing it unless you're very sure you're gonna win. Like the only reason why you wouldn't want to put it on top of your deck is if you want to get an extra event, because there's a chance you might flip an event and you get it into your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Spike Teculator gives you 2 AT when you defeat a Troublemaker. Pretty good. 3 AT. Team Effort and Straighten Up and Fly are extra flip events. There are also extra flip events with 5 power for Twilight, but I don't own them, so I worked with what I had. And you have your Troublemaker suit. You have Storm King, you have Trixie. How can I play without Trixie? You have Groggers, of course. You have T-Rex. T-Rex are pretty good because T-Rex retires a friend when you challenge him, but you don't have any friends, so you don't care. Sombra is an extra removal, pretty good.
Yep.
And Nightmare Star is really good, but I don't own a single copy of her. I borrowed this one from my friend.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, that's why Storm Kings are here. Like, if I had 3 Nightmare Stars, I would remove Storm Kings and put Nightmare Stars in.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Yeah, probably.
Yep.
Sombra and T-Rex are old staples in Harmony Farm also, just because they have excellent ratios of points to power.
Yeah, 5 power for this main is pretty good. Which is why you usually don't fight Grogger and you just use it to find other Troublemakers, because 7 power is a lot unless you have a stick.
Mm-hmm.
That's the risk that comes with this main. You're usually fighting with a 3 power character, which might not be very good. And you have like some events to mitigate that, but it's not guaranteed that you'll always have them.
Right.
The flip average of this deck is around 5 somewhere, and I like that.
Oh. Yeah, and this is exactly comes back to what I was talking earlier. Now you got to show up to a Harmony event with like a Faithful Student aggro deck or something, and everyone boards in all their anti-farm cards.
Yeah. And surprise, it's Unicorn aggro.
Yeah.
Twilight is a unicorn, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Once upon a time.
Isn't relevant in this deck, but I could have had Hyper Beams in here.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
so
that would work.
That's all I have to say about my deck.
Okay. Yeah.
Played farm because I archetype diversity, that's why.
Right. Now you're gonna bring like Luna to Babs and rock everyone's socks or something.
Yeah.
No.
Luna control, because
that would be something else. All right. Care to bring up another one for us? Or call out another deck for us, perhaps?
I mean, I'll just go through. There was another mono purple farming deck out there, and it's actually very similar to mine. It's like only a couple of Troublemakers of difference and a couple of cards. There's also a bunch of yellow decks. Let's look at the yellow deck.
Several yellow decks, that is correct.
Yeah, so this is I'll link it in.
Absolutely.
Chat. This is Wisconsin. Fluttershy, Nurturing Nature, mono yellow. Also, you laugh at Luna control, but yesterday I played against Thorax control, so.
That is also pretty surprising. Okay, Nurturing Nature. Where did I find that deck? This one, oh yeah, from Wisconsin, right?
Yeah. Is it Wisconsin? Is it not Wisconsin? Was I saying it wrong all this time?
Generally, it is Wisconsin, yes. But
okay.
We all learn something new. Yeah. Well, yeah. If you had something to say, go ahead.
Well, this is a yellow deck. It is a mono yellow deck, and it is one variation of the many other yellow decks we see in the store championship results, especially in top results, which means that yellow is pretty good right now, which is surprise to no one at this point, I think.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, one interesting thing that I would like to mention is that, as you mentioned, there are yellow decks and there's dilemma combos, and people have variation of dilemma combos. And so are with aggro yellow decks, right? You have some core deck with core part of the deck where you have things like banips, you have day shifts, and things like that. But you also have some things that are different in between decks. And I'm actually really interested in how yellow decks are going to change with sideboards in place. Because if you look at this particular list, it has the Raptor Razor, which isn't particularly useful unless someone else plays Troublemakers against you. And this deck has non-Troublemakers of its own.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's definitely a sideboard card, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, Eminently Sensible had his yellow list on Reddit just this week, and he ran the Raptor Razor just because he was running Grogar, and so he could guarantee getting the 7 critters, and then just banish Grogar when he wants to DFO.
Yeah.
But
But not this deck.
yeah. A deck like this would board out Raptor Razor for sure.
So yeah, but that's the thing that I wanted to talk about. The yellow decks would be interesting to see what they include in their sideboards and how they change because of the sideboards.
Yeah, honestly,
Which is yeah.
And you can probably speak to this more, as a control player, it's almost a little frightening looking at a deck like this, and so many of these cards are just incredible game-ending kind of cards, like Meadowbrook, Yona, Novo, Bunyip.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, imagine this deck doesn't have to run Meadowbrook unless it's playing against you.
Yeah. There's just so many.
That's another balancing concern about sideboards, is that while other non good enough silver bullet cards are getting better to be included, so do the current good silver bullet cards.
Yeah.
Meadowbrook was there in every yellow deck. If you open any yellow deck, it probably has Meadowbrook in it.
Mm-hmm.
And sideboards don't change that. Sideboards enhance that.
Yeah.
Sideboards means that if the yellow deck doesn't have to run Meadowbrook against particular matchup, it can choose other better cards instead.
Probably, presumably, if you're not running Meadowbrook, that means you're not expecting the opponent to play Troublemakers, which means you're expecting it to be a pretty fast game. So you'll put in something that makes your deck even faster, probably.
Mm-hmm. Same with dilemmas. You can there's a conning the companion here, or you can run Sanctuary Construction or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you expect a more aggro matchup, you can remove your anti-troublemaker dilemma and put some other more aggro dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think yellow has a lot of options in core right now, but in Harmony you can swap out Sanctuary Construction for Industrial Revolution or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah. But the main thing, all of the decks are getting better with sideboard. The question is, which decks benefit the most? And I think yellow is pretty up there on that part.
Probably, yeah. It's as you said, it comes down to which colors have kind of the best choices, right? And when you're choosing between 3 or 4 cards that are all bombs in their own right, then doesn't matter what your choice is, your deck's still going to be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh, sorry.
We'll see. I really hope that the next Coco the Sim puts out would have sideboards in it, so people can experiment before BAPS. But that didn't happen so far. So next Coco or Hako.
Yeah. You mentioned all the growing confidence stuff. Let me see if I can find one that I would look at and say is well. It's as you mentioned, it's tough because there were maybe 4 or 5 different variants on the growing confidence list in this
Yeah.
round of uh let's take sure. Oh, let's just look at GP's list. That's standard place to start. So he's one of the ones who opted for the pink for Goldie Delicious and the purple for Pegasus Royal Guard. Yes.
Yeah, makes sense.
Thanks. And then the pink also lets you play Catchy Song as well.
Yeah.
Which you would use that on your Critter Choirs or your Goldies. Wait, sorry. Yeah, just anything I discard, right? Yeah, so essentially, you use that for the super expensive high impact friends.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, you do the same thing with Whammy as well.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about Pegasus Royal Guard in particular is that it sticks around. It's really hard to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything short of mass removal doesn't really work against them because they'll just continue to multiply. And once they have like 16 of them, it's either mass removal or it doesn't really matter how many of them you remove. So it makes sense to have them in here. And even if you don't do like dilemma combo stuff, there's only 9 dilemmas over here.
Mm-hmm.
You can just play regular aggro with the cards that can't be removed pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, we're going to get to Skitter's deck that you gave me in chat just a little while ago because these two actually form kind of the opposite ends of the archetypes. Whereas
Yeah.
this one is going to be the deck that just you play Critter Choir this turn, and then the next turn I play Goldie, and the next turn I play. It's just going to be continuous, huge power spikes through the mid game.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one is, and again we'll get to it, the one that you may have seen the pictures on Discord where okay, I end up with 15 dilemmas in play and confronted them all and scored like I don't know. That's a lot of points.
Yeah. Like, I think this deck primary win condition is not like by comboing dilemmas, but like putting a bunch of them and playing confronting all of them. Dilemmas are like the auxiliary of this deck, more like.
Yeah.
And you run growing confidence because it makes dilemmas free. And dilemmas here still complement the deck. Like you have surprise summoning, which is pretty much like a catchy song, returns the thing into play. And there's a lot of things you want to put into play in this deck.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much any friend like works pretty well.
Well, surprise summoning is cost 2 or less,
Oh, well,
but it's
it's
still Pegasus Royal Guard, which is good enough.
it's Pegasus Royal Guard is pretty good.
Yeah.
Fluttershy entry card is also really good if you have a lot of critters. Day shift, and I guess like the more what's the word? Situational one is Pinkie Pie.
Yeah.
Like Pinkie Pie is the one you might not always want to have.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, all cards that your opponent probably used Primo removal on, get rid of and to get them into the discard pile in the first place.
Yeah.
So great to get them back into play. And also notable that, well, I mean, not with regard to surprise summoning, but with regard to Catchy Song, all of your big enters play abilities are, well, enters play abilities, not when you play.
Yeah. Even Middlebrook. Why does he have to be that?
All right. I guess to contrast, let's just get Skitter's deck here.
I think I know how Skitter built his deck. He went to Royal Archive and put filters for Dilemma, costs 1.
Seems likely. Yeah.
And put everything he saw in there. Well, except like that purple Dilemma that no one plays.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, this is the, as I said, this is the variant that can just play dilemma, 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 keep on going. Let's see how big the table needs to be to manage all of this.
Yeah, I think that's why all of the dilemmas here are 1 cost, even though there are some really good 2-cost dilemmas like Bug Bowl Championship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because 1-cost dilemmas are essentially free in this deck, which means you'll just keep drawing into them and drawing into them and drawing into them. Since you have so many of them, and whenever you draw one, you just draw another one for free and put it in play.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's kind of like a combo engine of sorts.
Honestly, as you were talking about it, that's what my mind was saying too. It's like, I wonder if you could use this to just draw your deck out and do some kind of combo thing.
There are easier ways to draw your deck out.
Yeah.
But this one works too. One thing it's interesting to see is that you probably need 2 industrial revolutions to go off, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're speaking in combo terms, it's going off now, not winning the game.
Yeah.
Because 1 crit require and 1 industrial revolution is probably not enough to confront everything. But either 2 crit requires or 2 industrial revolution does the trick fine.
Yeah.
No, actually, 2 industrial revolutions might not be enough too, because it's only it's 6 power. It's good enough. Yeah. But yeah, if I had to guess, Skitter's deck, unlike Grandpa's deck, basically plays by sitting and doing nothing most of the time. And once you have enough dilemmas and like 5 or 6 AT or so, which should be enough, maybe 8 AT if you want to be safe, you just keep playing dilemmas until you have enough to win the game from 0.
Yeah. Bide your time. Wait till the opponent gets enough points to trigger Fluttershy.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, just be able to win the game.
Yeah. Interesting card is Discord. I'm not sure why Discord in particular. There are like other, arguably better wide entry cards out there, especially in Harmony.
Was this a? Oh yeah, I guess this is Harmony by default.
Yeah, it has Barrel in it, so I guess it's Harmony. There's a Harmony problem in there.
Huh.
And Industrial Revolution, so
Yeah.
Another dilemmas. So yeah, I don't know. Discord is interesting. Maybe experience is a thing, I guess. You can get free white rec right off the bat, which might be, maybe that's the reason actually.
Oh yeah, because you need, well,
You need 2 for Creed Acquire, but if you don't have it, you still want to sometimes to play dilemmas.
yeah.
Maybe you play dilemmas to draw into Creed Acquire. You don't necessarily have to have it.
Oh, that would.
You can just take the risk.
Yeah, that would work.
Also, having 2 Fluttershies in play is enough.
Yeah.
As well. So.
Yeah, and well, he does have Mystery at Hope Hollow in here as well to search up. Well,
yeah,
it'll be either Fluttershy or Discord, presumably. I guess you can search for EEA too sometimes if you.
Also, what I really like in this deck is that 2 copies of backup vocals. I assume that's to flip his own main in case he plays against deck, which doesn't do face-offs.
Like the mirror?
Like the mirror,
Yeah.
or... Well, mirror still can do face-offs if they want to.
I guess so,
but
yeah.
Actually, I'm not sure. Do you want to do a face-off in the mirror? If you have backup vocals, you probably just want to hope that you'll draw it before your opponent.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So yeah, interesting.
This mirror match seems like very interesting.
Yeah.
Would it just be people sitting there until they got their combos in hand and then going off and winning the game?
I mean, that's how combo decks play.
I mean, yes.
the thing about it's not a really conventional combo deck because scoring points here is still useful, right? It's more like pile in this way. In pile, the more points you score during the game, the better. Same in this deck. It's just if you happen to confront problems, well, good. That means you need one less dilemma.
I guess so. Yeah. You're somewhat limited in your friends that you can put out to confront problems.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's worth it to still try.
Yeah. One thing that is interesting about this deck, Fireworks just destroys it right off the bat. Because they put all of the dilemmas in play, you let them confront two problems, then you play Fireworks and they confront nothing.
Ooh.
And all of them are gone. All of them. So Sideboards might change this deck quite a bit.
Ouch.
Because I'm not sure about you, but I do have a copy of Fireworks in my sideboard.
It makes sense. Yeah. I feel like Fireworks is probably a pretty good combo buster. Now, granted, that's what EEA is in here for, but
yeah, that's true. I guess they just play EEA. But still, if they don't play EEA, you have Fireworks.
mm-hmm.
Also, Fireworks is good against a bunch of other decks, which also happen to be yellow.
Yeah. Okay. Next, I wanted to. That's right. So we had the normal Harmony Reanimator list win in Vancouver, which was a Harmony Store Champ. But I saw at Seattle, I guess it was 4 days later, the else got posted. Max brought a core Reanimator list. That I wanted to take a look at. Okay. Oops, more bombs.
I think it was called Oops Steel Bombs or something like that.
Well, something like that, yes. And so, yeah, functionally very similar idea. Using Student 6 instead of Page's list had Changeling Pretender as the main, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Student 6 makes sense here because you don't have redeeming qualities anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And Student 6 is a really good way around that because it's kind of like Paradox Pony in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Except you still have to pay full cost. But 5 counters on it are not that hard. You'll probably get 6 or 7 during one game, maybe more. Depends on the game.
Mm-hmm.
But 6 or 7, or I think, is a average that makes sense. Yeah. And that is if you're not if you're confronting yourself, it's probably would be even more.
Mm-hmm. And this deck is perfectly capable, starting off orange-white, of playing enough little stuff in your limestone and your smolder and sandbar, etc., to at least confront a few problems.
Well, you don't really start with 2 colors.
Wow.
Student 6 lets you only choose 1 color.
Okay, that's fair.
I'd probably still choose orange, I think, because of the limestone.
Yeah.
But there are ways to enter colors. Here you have Fire Friendships and Generators. You have Klutchtown Citizen.
Mm-hmm.
You have Infiltrating the Hive, so you can start.
Yeah. And then at some point, you're going to, either you're going to rack up enough counters on your Student 6, or you're going to get enough colors to maybe play a catchy song.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're lucky, your opponent will defeat one of your Pony of Shadows. Also works.
Yeah.
Or you can actually discard something and then play a Stolen Talent as well.
Yeah. Chrysalis is pretty good, especially with Klutchtown Citizen. You can get an alicorn going by like turn 4. No, yes, turn 4. If you're running a pink main and a pinky sense, that could have been turn 2, but
well, in this could be a pink main with a pinky sense. You just put a pinky sense in the deck.
yeah, it's true.
But no, I think there's more value out of starting with orange, given the way that this whole thing works out. And now we have Golden Parachute in the game as well, so that when that first alicorn sticks, it's even easier for it to stick.
Well, you keep pumping up more. But yeah, but otherwise it's not really too different from the Harmony version.
I guess.
I think we'll see more of it.
Yeah. Guess I just wanted to point out that it is still a thing.
Yeah. Oh, I think it'll be still a thing for a while. Like even like across the sets. Like I don't think you can really release something in a set that would kill this deck. I think it can still exist unless there's like so much removal somewhere that it just can't keep up with the removal.
Yeah.
And we have Cannoneer, Pinkie Pie. I don't think we'll see more removal than that.
Good point. I mean, I guess you could print like more misfires and stuff to more discard pile hate.
Yeah. We actually don't have misfire and core anymore. No.
Although
I think the best,
misfire exists in Harmony, and this deck still exists in Harmony. So
yeah. But as far as discard hate goes in the core, I think we only have. Well, Celestia doesn't really do anything to this deck, so not counting her. Taken on Trust, I think that's the only card.
I believe so. Yeah.
So yeah, still a good card, but I'm not sure I would want necessarily this deck to return anything to its hand either. So
yeah, High Alert is here for a reason, after all.
I
mean, that is actually awful now that I think about it. You blast some kind of removal to get rid of the first Golden Parachute, and then they just take it back with High Alert or something.
Yeah. Wonder how this deck changes with Sideboard.
Interesting question.
I think you have like more Winter Zealous, maybe.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm like all of the cards here not really situational. They're just big cards with big effects.
Pretty much, yeah.
Limestone maybe is a more or less situation card, but still a big card with big effect. So I don't know. Yeah. Limestone is really good against growing confidence.
True.
I didn't think about that, but must be really good.
And I guess you'd naturally, if you're sideboarding, you'd look at the singletons and think about if it's possible to switch those out for more appropriate cards in given matchups.
Yeah.
But yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Was there another one that you wanted to bring up?
I mean, not really. I think the only ones that are left are mostly yellow decks.
Oh, no. I remember. Where was it? Animal. Here we go. Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. And Animal is purple-white. Was it? I honestly don't remember if it was control or
Animal likes to play control, so I assume it is control, from what I remember it is.
Yeah. I just wanted to let him know that it's very simple calculus here on Meticulous Talks. You put Celestia in a deck and it gets featured. So
I mean, it has tricks in it, so
yeah, that too. Yeah, I just saw this and thought it is pretty off the wall, pretty different. Well, I guess I say that and then I look at it, it's like actually this looks a lot like Unicorn, really. But um, we just talked about Celestia as being the discard pile hate, and I guess this is relatively traditional purple white control. Now that I look at it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Saw the Star Swirl, thought that looked interesting. This is
Yeah, Star Soul can be really valuable. Like if you expect no removal
mm-hmm,
against you, running Star Soul can be really good
mm-hmm. There you
because
go.
it's an extra educated draw every turn,
Uh-huh.
and it works like Faithful Student. You just put events into your hand.
Yeah.
Not as good as Faithful Student. I think he has to be. I don't remember if he has to be involved. Maybe not, but it's only one card anyway because he exhausts himself.
Nope. If you would put a flipped event on the bottom of your deck.
Okay,
No.
so he doesn't have to be involved, but it's still only one card.
Yeah.
Unlike Faithful Student, which lets you put all of the cards. Oh my god. I wish Star Soul had that ability.
Yeah. Actually, we were just talking about sideboards.
Yeah.
All of those cards from before that were like, this card's okay, but it's super expensive, and if there's removal, it's just a waste. If you find yourself in a matchup where you're not expecting a whole lot of removal, those cards
Mm-hmm.
can go in.
Yeah. Celestia is also pretty alright because she's cheap and she can have a lot of power.
Mm-hmm.
And would the opponent really remove Celestia or Star Swirl? Probably not.
Good call.
Basically,
Yeah.
having big targets in your deck makes other smaller targets who are still good less appealing. It's sort of protection against removal.
Yeah.
Like if you're afraid that your opponent will remove some card that you really like, just put a bigger card in there. Make it less appealing to remove this particular card. But other than that, yeah, I think it's pretty standard unicorn control. And not really, unicorn doesn't have that many unicorns in it. It has some.
Yeah, actually,
But
that's right. And we don't actually have any. I guess we have detention. Besides that, we don't have
yeah.
any unicorn scaling cards.
Mm-hmm. I think for that there's a spell for that. That's a pretty solid control deck.
Yeah.
You have a lot of friends who'd like to put cheaper. Like paying free for Star Soul is pretty good. Maybe I would include more Meticulous for there's a spell for that, because I think I see only old money, and that's a little bit on the shorter side of having Meticulous. Oh, there's Star Soul, right?
Yeah.
Supreme Meticulous.
Yeah. Super meticulous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that was another little narrative that I saw develop a little bit over the course of the results was the question of whether the purple decks were running Spell for that or Tempest. Because there was a lot on both sides. Well,
Ooh, did you know that I actually changed my main in my blue-purple deck, and now it runs there's a spell for that? I
okay.
bet you didn't.
No, I didn't. I don't think I've seen it since the set came out.
Yeah, so I updated my deck for the set, and I was like, oh, it's so bad, and I don't like Tempest. I wish there was a better main out there. And then I look at there's a spell for that, and the problem I have with there's a spell for that for control decks is that you play things on the opponent's turn, right? That's what I've always been telling about. There's a spell for that, which is why I always felt it was more an aggro mate. But then I actually looked at my deck, and the only immediate card in there was Same Name Delivery. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should play There's a Spell for that instead. And I tried it, and it was pretty good, because my deck controls not by playing things, but by having Wall of Troublemakers and friends that either support that wall or beat that wall themselves. Like Playing Daybreaker for 2, I love that. Playing Ember for 2, I love that. Playing Daring Do for 1, pretty good. Or Old Money for 3. Like, there's a spell for that as a good main. I really like it in the deck, way more than Tempest. It also removed the necessity of running Grubber in the deck. And with everyone running Pinky Senses and Fire Friendships, Grubber wasn't really that good anyway. So here's my beat on Tempest versus there's a spell for that. Worked for my deck. I like it more.
Interesting. Yeah. I think looking at the results, I see a little bit more Tempest than Twilight, but
well, the thing about Tempest is that it's a really easy main to use as well. All you have to do is to have a Grubber in your deck and the main, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about, oh, how I'm gonna flip my main or other things. Because once you start playing, there's a spell for that. Now you have this thing.
Right.
What if I will have a duplicate in my deck? How I will deal with that? Will I be able to exit that situation? Or will I have to sit and do nothing pretty much the entire game? With Tempest, you don't have this such complexity. You just flip your main, get to see their hand, and you're good. So, yeah. So I think like Tempest main is just generally easier to build for and play with.
Yep. I guess just to one on my list, I'm not going to show his deck because we've probably shown it about 1 billion times on this stream over the course of the past couple of years. Just make mention of the fact that Cheese was playing purple pink white control again. Functionally the same deck as what Friends Forever looked like, I think.
Yeah. Without portals and with old money.
Yep.
Because, hey, we have old money now.
Why not?
She is back. Back again.
And she still sucks to play against.
It's not as bad. Like, 4AT to remove a thing, it's strong, but not as strong as 2AT immediate remove a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I think she's not... I'd rather play against old money than against Bellyflop, that's the thing. And in Cheese's particular case, he runs both of them, so it's double frustrating.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose between playing against old money or Bellyflop, I'd choose old money. Because Bellyflop is immediate, costs 1.
Yeah. Was there anything else? Comes up. Well, that yeah, comes to the end of my list of notables.
Mm-hmm. Summer Store Championships will probably be interesting because of the sideboard change.
Right. Yeah. We'll see a lot of. Well, we'll get a look at how people are adapting to their local metas. Because that's definitely something that will come into a big play with sideboards.
Yeah.
I guess.
Because, like, if you know everyone runs aggro and you also run aggro, you would have sideboards with only aggro hate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you would have hate for specific types of aggro instead of, like, different archetypes. It's gonna be interesting, I think.
Yeah. And apparently, if you're playing in Moscow, you sideboard against whatever anybody else is not playing.
Yeah. It's true.
No, you sideboard against Rock Farmer always, right?
No, I sideboard with the Rock Farm.
Anyway.
It's, you know what, it'll be a requirement of my next tournament. To enter, you must have 1 copy of Rock Farmer in your sideboard.
I mean, you want to run a tournament your way, I guess. Anyway, I think we've run out of creative things to say.
Yeah.
Let's get off while the going's good. Thank you all for coming out. We'll be back 2 weeks time. Hopefully we'll have Pages back, be able to maybe have another discussion about his thoughts on these things. Otherwise, I know I apologize for kind of missing the boat on the advertisements for this one, but if you didn't get a chance to see it, it'll be up on YouTube shortly. And otherwise, I've been cursechords.
Yeah, I've been Hithroc.
And we'll see you in a fortnight.
Bye.